What a brilliant game of football. Villa Park seems to be the place to be at the minute because they're just producing great games of football. It was a tactical chess piece. I thought Chelsea were brilliant the first half, and we're going to break it all down, looking at individual players, looking at how the game planned out. So before we do so, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on another episode. But I want to get into this game because there's a lot of talking points from a tactical perspective, but also a player's perspective and managers. And I thought tactically, especially in that first half, Chelsea got it spot on. Enzo Maresca had to change it from those two abysmal performances against Brighton, and he certainly did that. I thought his player selection was absolutely spot on, and it kind of caught Aston Villa off guard. I thought Chelsea started the game really, really well, thoroughly deserved their one-goal lead, and it seems to be a theme and a pattern this season where they start extremely slowly, Chelsea moving the ball extremely well, and it was almost too easy. Villa allowed them to just dictate the game. The opening goal for Chelsea, this is Pedro Neto at his absolute best, receiving the ball out wide, driving to his man, getting the better of him, hitting the byline, and then putting the ball into a dangerous area. Enzo Fernandez, what do good midfielders do? They gamble, they become box crashers, and that's exactly what we're seeing from Enzo Fernandez, moving into the space in the box, gambling, and getting on the end of the cross. But I thought Villa's defending in that moment was shocking. Matty Cash not communicating with Konza, telling him where his man was, Konza getting called ball watching, and then allowing Enzo Fernandez to get in the blind side of him. He had no idea where Enzo Fernandez was. He looks to step out. Enzo Fernandez is behind him. Simple tapping. It was abysmal defending. I need to be honest. He was literally caught in no man's land, just staring at the ball watching, and not looking over his shoulder. And Chelsea deservingly took the lead. This woke Villa up after the goal. Villa grew into the game in that first half. But again, they can't afford to keep giving opponents leads because eventually they'll not get back into the game. But I thought, although Villa did grow into the game, they still couldn't find that right rhythm. The idea was right, but the execution just wasn't. But they did create chances. Ollie Watkins should have scored a couple. And when you're in that momentum, that's when you need to make sure it counts. But I think the main difference in that first half is Chelsea had an outlet and they had movement. I thought Chelsea's front four movement caused Villa all sorts of problems in that first half. Nkunku would start on the left and then come inside centrally, or if Neto's coming inside, Nkunku would stay out on the left and then Neto would go out on the right, Palmer would come inside, and it was just causing Villa all sorts of problems because the defender didn't know who to mark, didn't know where, if they should go with their player or stay in their shape. They just didn't know what to do, and this movement is something that Chelsea have been lacking, especially against Brighton. They were far too static, they had no runners off the ball, and that meant they had no options when they did receive the ball, and that's why they weren't creating much. But in this game, it was a lot different. It had plenty of options. And that's where Neto's goal come from. He started out in the central position. Then he curved his run out wide. Beautiful. That's how you create chances. I often say the most important thing in football is your movement. Because for the player on the ball, if there's no movement around him, he's got nowhere to go. So if you're moving off the ball, you're going to cause the opposition problems. But you're also going to pull them out of their position, creating space for other players to exploit. And that's exactly what Chelsea were doing in the first half. So it was really clever from what Enzo Maresca done, especially playing with those wing backs, because what that did was it made Ramsey and Morgan Rogers play 5 yards deeper, so it nullified any threat that Aston Villa could have in the final third. And this isolated Ollie Watkins, and that's why Aston Villa found it difficult to gather any rhythm or really grow into the game. Thought it was brilliant tactical game plan from Maresca in that first half. And with Nkunku not playing as a touchline winger and having him inverting inside and roaming inside and giving him the license to support Pedro Neto, this allowed Enzo Fernandez to vacate the central areas, get on the ball, and this created overloads for Chelsea in the middle. And that's why they always could find that pass in the first half, because Enzo Fernandez was just peeling away into the left half spaces, and that's where they found their rhythm, and then they built it from there, and it was genius from Enzo Maresca. And I want to talk about a few players, Christopher Nkunku and Enzo Fernandez. In that first half, I've seen more from Christopher Nkunku than I have in the past 2 games against Brighton. I thought he was trying to get on the ball, he was trying to make things happen. And when you're not playing him as a touchline winger, that's when you get the best out of Christopher Nkunku. He's played a similar role, not the same, but a similar role when he was at RB Leipzig, where he was using those left inside channels, coming inside and supporting the striker. And that's where you get the best out of Christopher Nkunku. He's not good when you ask him to be on touchline winger because he doesn't have that natural ability. But when he's moving off the ball and closer to goal, that's where you're going to get the best out of Christopher Nkunku, especially when you've got another striker supporting him. With him vacating the left-hand space, it allowed Enzo Fernandez to dictate the game, and I thought he was brilliant in that first half and fully deserved his goal. I thought from a Villa perspective in that first half, they just weren't getting tight enough. The game was just slightly passing them by, and I think they missed the presence of Kamara or Unana in that middle of the pitch where they can just have a bit more physicality, have a bit more presence on the pitch. But I also want to speak about Morgan Rogers, because I need to be true to my feelings, right? Because I love this boy. Everything about him, I love him, but I want him to be more of a volumes player. I think he drifts in and out of games. And if you look at Asensio's second half performance, he was that volumes player, just getting on the ball. Not everything come off, but he was trying to make things happen. He was receiving between the lines. He was driving at opponents. I want to see that from Morgan Rogers, because I think if he adds a volume to his game, it's going to be even more frightening, because we all know he's got excellent on the ball, powerful dribbling. He can create moments out of nothing. And again, it wasn't his best performance, but he grew into the game. And I think the reason he grew into the game is because in that second half, he was playing closer to Watkins, obviously before Watkins come off, but he had that license to come inside. In the first half, he was using the channels, trying to create width, and it just wasn't working for him. I think he's better when he comes inside. And with Ian Maatsen, especially in that first half, I noticed I do have my slight concerns from him defensively. I thought he was getting caught out of position a lot more. Chelsea were exploiting that space that was vacated behind them, but that was probably a specific tactic set up by Enzo Maresca. But going forwards, I think he's got the ability to go forwards, but I don't think he's built up that chemistry like Lucas Digne has with Ramsey or whoever plays on the left-hand side. So I think if Ian Maatsen is going to start playing a lot of games for Aston Villa, he needs to start building up those partnerships on the pitch, and you only do that by playing games. So it's going to be interesting how Unai Emery develops him, because I think the only way he can develop him is by playing games. But Lucas Digne is your first choice left back. But the game ended 2-1 Aston Villa, and I think that's quite deservingly. I think Villa deserved to win that game, especially on that second half performance. I thought Marco Asensio on that second half, wow. He was dictating the whole game. But I want to give Pedro Neto a special mention, because he was leading the line for Chelsea today. He was playing out of position, a position he's never played before, and I thought he was excellent. I thought he was hungry. He was moving off the ball, and he was causing Aston Villa all sorts of problems. But in that second half, Villa just stepped up a gear. They were pressing with more energy. They made better use of the ball by having more options off the ball. And I thought Marco Asensio ran that game in the first half. Even though everything didn't come off for him, and there were certain times where things just didn't quite work, he was trying to make it happen. And that's all I want from a footballer. If I'm a manager, I'm saying to my footballers, just get on the ball, just try and make things happen, take risks in possession. And I thought that's what Aston Villa did differently in the second half. And I thought Marco Asensio receiving between the lines, finding pockets of space. Chelsea just couldn't get a hold of the ball for that reason. And I thought Asensio was so clever in that second half, because he was bringing other Aston Villas into the game. And I thought without his centrepiece, Aston Villa probably don't win that game. But from a Chelsea perspective in that second half, I thought they stopped creating the overloads in the middle. And I thought that was working so well in the first half. Cucurella was coming inside, or Reece James was coming inside, and they were creating that overload in the middle, so they always had that extra man to find that extra pass. But they stopped doing it in the second half, and the one time that they did, Caicedo received the ball in the centre of the pitch, played Cole Palmer in. And to be fair, Cole Palmer should have scored. I thought the back of the net was just going to rip up, but it wasn't to be. But the one time they created that overload, they got in on goal. So I don't know why they stopped it. But I want to give Marcus Rashford another shout out, because I thought when he came on, he gave Aston Villa an outlet, peeling wide, receiving the ball. He was being direct. Again, not everything came off for him, but it was a lot more threatening from Aston Villa in the second half. And this allowed Morgan Rogers to move closer to the centre forward. And that's what I'm saying. That's how you get the best out of Morgan Rogers. Football's all built on profiles and partnerships. And I think when Rashford's on the pitch, it steps up Morgan Rogers' game for some reason. And it obviously stepped up Asensio's game. But again, from a Chelsea perspective in the second half, they were a lot more passive. The energy just went down a little bit. That's probably because Aston Villa's energy and quality went up. So it did diminish what Chelsea were doing. But again, Chelsea's energy, they were a lot more passive. They weren't winning first or second balls in that second half. And they were very sloppy in possession. And it seemed like Aston Villa woke up to what Chelsea were trying to do. So they were a little bit more disciplined in their shape. And what I mean by discipline is they were telling Yuri Tielemans or John McGinn just to protect the back four a little bit more. And that just gives them more security and allows the front four, as in Watkins, Rogers, Rashford, Asensio, Bailey looked bright when he come on. He was being direct. Not everything come off. He needs to find that final ball, but he was being direct. But it just allowed them to express themselves more. And then Chelsea were wary about what was happening behind them rather than what was happening in front of them. So I thought it was a brilliant tactical chess piece between the two sides. I thought, looking back on reflection, I thought Villa probably deserved the win. So for me, my man of the match today was Marco Asensio. Despite his 2 goals, you can take his 2 goals away if you wanted, and he would still be my man of the match because he was a difference maker in that second half. I love a player that just wants the ball all the time, always receiving on the half turn, finding pockets of space, just being a nuisance, causing chaos to the opposition. That's exactly what Marco Asensio does. And I think he showed his quality. He showed today that he knows how to change a game, impact a game. And if you think about it, he doesn't have that explosive space, so it's all in his mind, and I love that. But I want to give a special mention to a couple of players on both sides. Pedro Neto was fantastic for Chelsea. I thought he led the line brilliantly despite not being the centre forward. So Enzo Fernandez was pretty good for Chelsea, and I thought Moses Caicedo was very stable as usual. But for Aston Villa, I thought John McGinn was very good, especially in that second half. Yuri Tillemans was very good as usual, and I think he's probably been the most underrated midfielder in the league this season. But I thought Rodgers definitely grew into that game in that second half. But there's my thoughts. Just a brilliant game of football, unbiased view, I hope. And I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Were you happy with your team's performance? And was there anything you were worried about? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, good luck to Chelsea, good luck to Aston Villa, and thank you very much for watching.